T-Mobile. Did we? Okay. All right, to recognize. Recognize Paula Ladner, our tax assessor.
Paul just generally needs to state the appeal, and then it's their burden to go forward.
Yeah.
Per the documents that we have received, it is apparent that T-Mobile is not happy with their values. And it is our opinion that after getting Cell Tower Solutions to help us last year in their expertise in valuing these cell towers, we feel like the values that we have put on the tax rolls are appropriate unless T-Mobile can prove otherwise.
Okay. Anything else?
I want to mention too that T-Mobile has been sending to us each year, and I've given you copies over the last 7 or 8 years and further back. When they send us their rendition, which is they're supposed to give us a detailed listing, they're sending us their rendition stating just cellular equipment. And that is not telling us a whole lot. We have to determine when they give us a detailed listing, the state requires us to put these items in different categories. They're depends on what the item is, how it is depreciated. But they're not giving us anything to look at to figure out which category it goes in or how we are supposed to depreciate their equipment and what it is. And we have reached out to them. I have also given you an email that we received this year. We reached out to them, we asked them for a detailed listing, and we have yet to get that. So all we have is a rendition that says cellular equipment in the different locations, different taxing districts. And that's all we've had to go on. So that's why we've stayed with the values that we have, per our expertise from Cellular Tower Solutions. We have used their values because, in our opinion, they are way more experienced. They're able to tell us more or less what the values we should be looking for, and we're not getting it.
Couple of questions, how many locations, these are cellular towers, is that what it is?
Yes.
How many locations do they have?
Yeah, there's a list here. There's probably about 40.
40
I
cell
haven't counted them,
towers.
but there's
Throughout the county?
throughout the county.
Okay.
And so those are separate parcel numbers.
Those are separate, yes.
Did you receive a affidavit for each one of those parcel numbers as to with a description of the equipment? And stating that it was the speeds, and is that for each one of those separately?
The renditions that we received for this year do not have the speed on them, and they also do not have a detailed listing of a description describing the equipment. All it says is telephone cellular.
Well, the only affidavit that I've seen is this one that says, the one-page affidavit. Is that the affidavit they
Well,
say?
the actual rendition is, I think it's considered an affidavit also, the actual rendition.
And the rendition that you've shown produced, it just says telephone equipment, cellular telephone.
Yes,
equipment. Doesn't give a description of the equipment.
no.
This one affidavit that lists this, it's not specific as to any parcel, is it?
No, it does not specify.
Okay.
Is this what you refer?
Yeah, I'm looking at this, no, this is an affidavit that they submitted compliance with the statute. It says they're supposed to give a description of the equipment and the speed of that equipment. And so this is a one-page affidavit that does not specify even what parcel it's directed to. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So the representative for T-Mobile is Ala Rakin, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, before we start, I need you to acknowledge that you have assets in the first and second judicial district. Okay, and since we're having the hearing in the second judicial district, we have to waive your rights to be heard in the first judicial district so we can consider all your assets as listed in the second judicial district.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. You can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, board, for hearing this. I think you have a summary of what's going on. Just as a just background, we do currently have a court case open for the 2024 tax year, and it is basically the same issues with the broadband exemption being the primary one and T-Mobile's assets qualifying for that exemption. The second issue being valuation, as you all heard earlier. The T-Mobile disagrees with using CTS's values as the starting point for any kind of valuation separate and apart from the qualification for the broadband exemption. The Mississippi appraisal procedural manual requires going with T-Mobile's costs and not the ones that are generated by CTS, which are not the actual cost of the assets. And I believe with 25, there might be some new parcels that aren't actually, that T-Mobile doesn't even have assets on. So we provided a few things. One, with our appeal, we have the side-by-side for each parcel, which is the assessor's values and what T-Mobile's books and records show that the values would be. That excludes any assets that are qualified under the broadband exemption. Now, as someone noted earlier, the change in the law that went into effect for kind of a mix of July 1st and April 1st of 2025, we don't think that should affect the qualifications for the assets for 2025, as we didn't file an affidavit in compliance with the law just to be safe and to make sure that you are aware of what we were doing. But we do think the 2025 change in the law is relevant as to clarify what qualifies for the equipment for the exemption. And that clarification shows that wireless equipment over the requisite speed does qualify and has always qualified. So we do think that this change is relevant for 2025 and that T-Mobile's equipment that it is claiming the exemption for and not reporting is because it is exempt under the law.
Okay,
Let me understand, clarification. Excuse me, Paula, you were saying that they just give you a broad listing and they did not list individual assets.
Correct.
Now, did y'all's refusal to issue those individual assets that the assessor is saying, is that based on the fact that you feel those are exempted based on the broadband, the new law in reference to the broadband exemption? Am I making myself kind of clear what I'm asking?
So we're asking, we don't prepare the return that is exactly privy to the conversations or the requests. I believe that so I have rendition, the spreadsheet that is used, and it lists the different kinds of equipment, and a lot of it does break out cellular cabinets and computer equipment based on the year, and everything that is not qualified under the exemption is reported at the level of detail that T-Mobile has on its records.
May I ask you a
Yes.
question? I'm sorry, what was your name again?
My name is Olive Waken.
Okay, the lady that signed this affidavit, Cheryl Whithar, she's not here?
Yes,
She
she
is?
prepared the returns at T-Mobile.
Okay. And you said earlier that, and I believe I understood you correctly, that this affidavit is required not in 25, but it's required in the next year, but y'all went ahead and submitted the affidavit. Did I understand that correctly?
I'm sorry.
Did I understand that correctly, that,
Yes, we submitted it along with a cover letter, essentially explaining what our interpretation of the law is, because the law went into effect after T-Mobile had actually already prepared its returns for 2025 and submitted them. So after the fact, we submitted an affidavit just to clarify that the affidavit attests to the fact that the equipment claimed for that year was over the requisite speeds.
well, what I'm looking at only describes, generically describes, just, let me read it correct, exactly. Hold on just a second. It refers to everything as, I think, cellular equipment. Hold on a second.
It's the one that's dated April 30th.
That's the revision.
Everything is just described, the only description is given telephone, cellular. Do y'all have a more specific description about what this equipment is?
Yes. There are different, so a lot of the equipment that is being exempted in the supplemental affidavit that was filed in, let's see, it's dated April 30th, 2025. So we
Okay.
submitted that after the rendition, once the new law was in effect,
How many,
requesting that.
excuse me, how many parcels does T-Mobile have in Harrison County? I think Paula said it was approximately 40.
Yeah, I was just trying to do a count to make sure, but that is about right.
Okay, let's just assume it's 40. You've only submitted one affidavit, correct?
Yes,
And that affidavit is not specific to any of these parcels, correct?
it is not specific to the parcels. Our reading of the law does not, it doesn't specify that level of detail, what level of detail there needs to be.
Well, it says description for each parcel, there must be if you're applying for an exemption, you agree with me, you're applying for an exemption on each parcel, correct?
Same type of equipment at each parcel.
All right, and so we don't have an affidavit for each parcel in this case, correct?
The affidavit file would apply for each parcel that T-Mobile has.
But the affidavit that T-Mobile submitted does not even reference a parcel number. Do you agree with that?
It's
I'm looking at it, ma'am, it doesn't have a parcel number on it.
We do not list, it looks like it's about 60 parcels actually for 2025. I'm not sure that, if some of these were the ones that were appealed, if, a few of them were not actually had any assets in it that T-Mobile owns. But the affidavit applies to each of the parcels that T-Mobile has.
All right. There's no way to know that, ma'am, because there's no parcel number even referenced on the affidavit. That's just, I assume T-Mobile's position is that you meant for this to apply to every parcel number that's subject to the appeal. But it's an affidavit under oath, and without a reference to the parcel number, there's no way for anybody to know that, or this board to know that. Do you agree with that?
I think the matter of the parcel numbers is not, it does not, the law, the statute does not specify that we have to list the parcel numbers and the specific assets for each parcel number on the affidavit.
I know what it says, ma'am. It says you're supposed to give a description of the property that you are seeking an exemption on. Without those parcel numbers, there's no way to tell that this, and you're supposed to give an affidavit to that effect. It doesn't say that you can give one affidavit for all 50 parcels in Harrison County, does it?
It doesn't say one, but it doesn't say you have to give one for each parcel either.
Well, how would you enforce an affidavit that's not specific to each parcel? How would we determine whether or not somebody's not telling the truth when the affidavit doesn't refer to any parcel number?
No, we are happy to do if those directions were given, as I mentioned, this law was passed after the renditions were prepared this year, and we tried our best to kind of comply with the ambiguous law. If next year Harrison County has a specific form the affidavit should take, we can comply with that, but
We didn't submit the affidavit.
that's with that information we had kind of at the last minute.
Well, let's move on, because that'll bring me to my next subject. The tax assessor of Harrison County made specific requests to T-Mobile to produce information regarding each one of these parcels numbers, did she not?
I'm not privy to all of that. I will say that T-Mobile has taken the position that when CCS is involved, they do not share their detailed records based on their history with how that information has been used. I think T-Mobile has always cooperated with the assessor and the assessor themselves when they are requesting information. I think if T-Mobile did not produce something that was easily accessible to it or within its records, the only reason they would have not provided it is because of CCS's involvement.
Okay, well, ma'am, I'm not talking about anybody else other than the tax assessor. And I'm gonna read this email for the board's reference and knowledge and for you, so you can respond to it. On May the 6th of 2025, Rebecca Grimmett, if I'm saying that correctly, I don't wanna make her mad, wrote an email to Cheryl, who I believe is Miss Cheryl Whithar with T-Mobile, who signed the affidavit. And I'm gonna read this, and when I finish, I'm gonna start, and then I'll tell you when I'm finished. We are aware of the state law and have received this certified letter, as I mentioned yesterday. We have not received the package containing exempt assets, as it is our understanding this is somewhere in the postal system. I'm assuming lost per an email from you on March 13th, 2025, sent to our tax collector Sharon Barnett, whom forwarded to our department. We only received the email of the asset listed showing only, quote, cabinets and telephone cellular assets. We need a detailed listing, including all equipment, exempt or not. All equipment needs to be labeled as broadband, antennas, power equipment, etc., and the year placed in service. This has to be done every year on all old and new equipment. State law requires us to keep this information in our records. Now I'm going to stop right there. Did I read that correctly? Have you seen this email before?
I do not think I have.
Did T-Mobile provide the information that the tax assessor of Harrison County requested T-Mobile provide?
Well, I am not questioning what the assessor described. I believe she was accurate.
That wasn't the question. The question was, did T-Mobile provide the information that the tax assessor of Harrison County in performing her duty as tax assessor requested? I understood you say earlier no, because you didn't want it to get in the hands of the tax assessor's expert.
Yes. She mentioned, I don't have personal knowledge of exactly what happened, but that is, if they said no, that was the reasoning. And I do believe that the assessor is accurate if she said she has not received it.
Now, the Board of Supervisors also sent T-Mobile a letter to Ms. Whithart that asked them to bring certain things to this hearing. Are you aware of that letter?
Yes, I am, and the response that T-Mobile provided.
Where is the response? Do you have that? Where did T-Mobile provide that response? Do you have a copy of the response? Well, let me just ask you line by line. The board asked you to bring to the hearing today books and records, including any construction contracts, construction costs, gross income, and expenses on these parcels. Did y'all bring any of that?
He cannot provide what you are requesting because those things don't exist.
That's fine.
And I can give you some explanations as to why we couldn't provide those, and that was what was in the response.
If it doesn't exist, that's a legitimate answer. B, any recent appraisals of the property? Y'all have any recent appraisals of these various cell types, sites?
No, and I can give you some overarching, we just do not have the kind of information at the level of detail for Harrison County that we could provide.
Current insurance policies in effect on the property. Did y'all have any current insurance policies in effect on these various cell towers?
No, not specific to the cell towers.
Well, usually when the insurance companies insure something, they come up with a schedule of what they're insuring at each site, so they don't pay for something they don't insure. And you're telling this board under oath that T-Mobile does not insure, have any schedules from their insurance companies of what that insurance company values that property at.
T-Mobile does not maintain cell site specific insurance policies. What T-Mobile does as a national company, T-Mobile has company-wide insurance policies that would cover those individual cell sites, but it would have nothing that would be specific to the cell sites that it could provide you.
But you don't have, you didn't bring any of those insurance policies or schedules of those insurance policies.
I would not be authorized to bring those, and they are not specific to the cell sites and have nothing about the cell sites that are referenced in them.
What about deeds to the various property or leases on the properties where these cell towers are located?
T-Mobile doesn't have the deeds. It generally doesn't own these properties. It does not have any encumbrances on it. Doesn't have any details. Any of the requests that were on there just doesn't have those.
What about current photos? Well, I asked about leases. I assume all these are leases. That's commonly the way it's done. Right? Leases, you have, T-Mobile has leases on the property, or an agreement with somebody about the property.
T-Mobile has some leases with, was that requested in the letter? Sorry.
No, I added any deeds on the property or leases.
I don't know, they do lease cell tower space. I don't think that was requested, so I just don't have that. I don't have that information.
What about current photos of the property and the improvements thereon?
We don't regularly maintain that.
That's not the question. Do y'all have that?
I don't have that because we do not regularly maintain that to produce without actually going and producing that for your request.
Do you recall, the tax assessor, Ms. Ladner, requesting to inspect each one of these towers, to go into the towers, take photographs of them and inspect them so she could determine the true value of those equipment that was in there. And whether or not it was for broadband.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the full question.
Do you recall Ms. Ladner requesting to actually go into these cell tower locations and photograph and inspect those towers, including the equipment that was located in there?
Aware of that, that was a request, but again, I will reiterate that T-Mobile has the same response relating to CTS as a contractor and will not agree to them accessing the sites.
Ma'am, just so you understand why I'm asking this, the law requires this. It has nothing to do with CTS. This has to do with the duties of the Harrison County tax assessor, who has an obligation, and the taxpayer has a right to produce information as requested by the tax assessor to make a determination whether or not of the true value of the property and or whether or not it's exempt or not. So what you keep telling me is that T-Mobile refuses to provide the tax assessor with that information because they don't want CTS to have access to it. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, that absent a protective order by a court, T-Mobile will not share information with CTS.
Do you realize that the statute 273590, section 273597 of the Mississippi Code states that any person or concern failing to or refusing to comply with such demand shall be precluded from objection to any such assessment?
We have complied with the requests that were feasibly produced in that letter. Everything that we could produce that was requested, we have. And to the extent we can, we have explained why we can't because it does not exist.
Well, it's not a matter, no ma'am, I'm not talking about just the letter, I'm talking about other correspondence where she asked to have access to these cell towers so that she could photograph and do her job as assessor and to inspect the equipment, to determine what it was, and not just have your rendition that says nothing more than telephone sale or whatever that means. You refuse to allow her to go into these cell sites and inspect them to determine what was there. Right?
Don't have request or the response to that. I do have the letter that we responded to with the request under the statute you are referring to.
Do you agree that the only description of the property that T-Mobile has provided is in the rendition that refers to, I'll give you an example, it's called telephone, cellular, or cabinet, furniture and fixtures, inventory. Those are the descriptions that are on your rendition, I'll call it.
Yeah, there's a few others, leasehold improvements, computer equipment. Those are the categories based on what T-Mobile has on its record of the descriptions of the assets that are taxable.
Well, the problem with that is that doesn't give a description of the property. That's a pretty general description. Do you agree with that?
This is the information that we maintain in the record that is produced.
I understand that may be in your records, but what is on the cell site? That's what the question is, and that's why Ms. Ladner requested to go in and inspect the cell site so she could see what was in there, and y'all refused to allow her to do that. Am I wrong on that?
I'm just not aware of the specific request or the answer. I can't tell the response to that.
Hold on a second, I'm going to ask her to find that email where hold on just a second. It's a letter, right? This letter, okay. It's a letter, the date's covered up. Oh,
Well, this is when we mailed it, December 12th, 24.
okay. It's a letter that was mailed to you on December the 12th of 2024. And it says specifically, we would request the ability to examine your sites located here with both your tax and technical staff. Did T-Mobile comply with that request?
I have not seen that letter or know what the response to it was, so I cannot answer that.
All right, it further states the process of opening your cabinets and shelters would allow you to address the specific differences that you have with the cell tower solutions asset list. Once we make physical examination of the sites and your documents, we can hopefully resolve this appeal. Did y'all do that?
I'm not familiar with the request, so I cannot respond to that.
Let's see who got it. Hold on just a second. David T. signed for it. You don't know who that is? You don't know who David T. is, do you? On the sign the return receipt.
I don't, that may just be someone in the mailroom.
Well, oh. Who is she? Okay. Just a few more questions, the board permitting me. Ma'am, I'm sorry, and I apologize for this, but all these names are new to me. What was your name again?
It's Olive Rayton.
Okay, and you are employed by whom?
I'm at a law firm, Emerson Sutherland, and counsel to T-Mobile.
So you're a hired attorney for T-Mobile. Do we have a representative of T-Mobile on here?
No, I'm appearing on their behalf today.
So T-Mobile has no one here to explain other than an attorney answer these questions? And where are you located?
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay. I hate to ask this, and it's not to be insulting, but are you licensed in Mississippi?
I am not. We do have Mississippi local counsel, in our court case that's in Harrison County.
I understand that's in the court case that's pending, not in this matter. Right?
Yes.
Who else do we have on? Here? Who are?
Ryan Beckett. I think he might be an attorney.
Yes, it's Ryan.
Ryan Beckett with T-Mobile.
No, sir, I'm serving as a member of the public. I represent Jasper and Lee County in similar cases.
Okay, well, thank you, Jasper. We're waiting on you. We've been waiting on you.
I'll call you
We're
back.
writing. Okay, that's CTS on what's left.
Can you ask him to identify himself?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get everybody to identify themselves for the record. We've got Mr. Beckett with Jasper County. And who else we got with CTS?
Walt Woodard.
Chris and I are with CTS.
All right.
So would you like us to go forward?
No, right at the moment, let's see who else we have.
That's it.
Okay. All right, so now you want CTS to?
Who's the other?
And also, Kent Wolf, our partner,
He's with
he's the other
CTS.
person that's on the line as well too. He's just listening today.
Okay, do you want CTS to talk to the board now? Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. Mr. Holloman, thank you for your good questions. I think actually we can go through those pretty quickly to kind of give you some additional basis for what Ms. Rayton said and sort of what wasn't said. First of all, just as a point of introduction, CTS is located in, ironically, in Athens, Georgia. And we've been doing this for 16 years. We are an engineering and consulting company that focuses on, obviously, towers and cellular communication equipment. And what we do is we reverse engineer the sites. So all these bits and pieces that you've been trying to address with the returns that T-Mobile have filed are the details of what we're looking for. And so essentially, if you think about a car, you can look at a field of cars that are exactly the same model, but until you pop the hood and actually go part by part, piece by piece, they may be worth substantially different amounts of money from a cost basis. And so that's what we're doing is we go out to all the individual sites and we inventory, photograph the sites in detail. And then Mr. Shrewsbury, who is our Director of Engineering, goes back and actually goes piece by piece, point by point. Mr. Shrewsbury has over 30 years of experience in the industry, working for AT&T, some of the leading companies in the industry. He has probably one of the best backgrounds because he's been across engineering, implementation, and then jumping over into the actual equipment side as well. So he covers all the bases. So far as the issues of T-Mobile and what numbers are there, indeed, Ms. Rankin was correct in stating that T-Mobile tax does not have access to the information that you're requesting. If you look at the returns from T-Mobile, you'll see that they're from a company called T-Mobile South LLC. Okay, there are 4 of those companies around the country. There's T-Mobile West, Central, South, I believe it's Northeast. Those 4 different companies are set up specifically for tax. They have no employees, they have no assets. The assets are held by T-Mobile US Corporate, which is the company that is on the stock exchange and reports to the SEC and to the IRS. So, indeed, T-Mobile South does not have the asset of all the assets detail that T-Mobile Corporate has. Do they have it? Absolutely. They know where every single part and piece is by manufacturer, model number, cost, age, all that information is available through T-Mobile Corporate. Indeed, photos, one of the things that these companies do is because they're often diverted through storms and other incidences where they need to go out and to provide the equipment much quicker, they'll actually go back every maybe year and a half or so and actually detail inventory with photos and send crews out there to do so to make sure that they have the right assets. Because if you think about it, let's say there's an outage in Harrison County and their crews are located in Jackson with their warehousing, and they have to send a crew. Well, they're darn well going to make sure that they know what equipment is involved in that outage. So from a tax standpoint, it is true T-Mobile South LLC, the filing entity, receives filtered information from corporate that they then file. So the affidavit that are signed with these returns is an affidavit of information that has been given to tax as a substitute for actual assets. So indeed, the tax department only has what they have. And we've gone through this many a time before with them as well too. So those are the key points on that. So hopefully that answers and fills in some of those questions that you had.
It's sort of a plausible deniability.
That is true. I mean, the reality is the individuals that are signing these returns in Seattle, Washington, they've never been likely to Harrison County. They have no access to the asset detail, what T-Mobile calls internally the FAR report, which is fixed asset report. They don't have access to that. They are given numbers, they're told to sign, and they do their job and they sign it and they send it out. So, to the best of their knowledge and ability, absolutely. But they have no knowledge of the actual sites, and so they're just signing returns as a perfunctory type function for T-Mobile. So, that's a point. So far as the actual asset cost, we had there's a new company on the horizon, a company called Dish, Wireless. It's a division of Dish, the Dish Satellite Company that provides, satellite services and so forth. But Dish, when we ran into them for the first time in Lamar County, I called up the national tax director, and within 6 hours, we had invoices, purchase orders that matched to the penny to what Dish was filing. We are under non-disclosure agreements with all of our counties, so therefore, the information that we have has never quote unquote been misused, because we're under the requirement that we fulfill that for the county and for the individual taxpayers. So that Dish information, was given to the county with our recommendation, and from there, we don't utilize that in any other shape or form. So that's pretty much that. So at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Shrewsbury. He's gonna go into some in-depth detail on a few sites. As Rankin said, there are over 60. And that's, just as a making, insert here, that's actually one of the issues is the other carriers typically break out each return on an individual, under an individual PIN number for the county, with all the assets listed. T-Mobile tends to just file them all lumped on top of each other, in 1 or 2 documents, which makes it difficult just even handling the document. It's in a very small type. There's no asset detail there. There is no computer equipment on a cell site. Mr. Shrewsbury's designed these sites, he's implemented the sites, he's worked with the assets, and he can tell you there is no general purpose computer equipment located on that site. So, Chris, why don't you take it away?
Okay, good afternoon, board. We're here again this year. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to go through, I guess, as long as it was brought up, I will go ahead and start with the broadband exemption issues that were discussed earlier. Hopefully you can see this. Can everybody read? Read it.
Make it a little bit bigger, Chris. There you go.
Can everybody read the screen now? Okay. So one thing I want to stress as I go through this, we have 2 different asset classes on a cell site. One that you've alluded to today, I heard a gentleman say cellular. That's the old way of saying mobile broadband. Okay, so cellular and mobile broadband or mobile wireless broadband, that's all the same vernacular. Okay, there is a new category that was launched nationally in 2021, and I believe T-Mobile was at the forefront of that. It's called mobile broadband fixed, or mobile wireless fixed broadband. That's a mouthful. Its initial is FWA, which really stands for fixed broadband access, but we won't talk that way. But FWA is a new technology that emulates what the old broadband technology was when these older bills, these 2003 bills, 5787-7 and 5787-3, when they were drafted, the only broadband that was available was fixed. And when I say fixed, it was via a wire. So it was either fiber went directly into your home, a cable directly into your home, or it was your telephone wire or dial-up went directly into your home. And it landed on a modem. And so when we talk about modems or Wi-Fi modems, we're talking about the internet. So if you go out and Google or whatever, and you say, what is a modem? It will tell you it is Wi-Fi internet, or Wi-Fi modem, etc. So I just want to get those 2 cleared up before I go into it. Now, the older bill here, 5787-3, it's not talked about a lot, but it was passed at the same time as the 5787-7, which listed the speeds and the equipment. Now, 5787-3 is a very interesting read because you can kind of get an insight as to what the legislature was thinking at the time. A few things that I highlighted here is, they're looking for high-speed access to the internet. They're looking for citizens to have the internet throughout the state of Mississippi. They want them to have the full potential of the internet. They go on to say that they want to provide broadband technology throughout the state, and this is all good stuff. When you get down here to what I have in yellow, they kind of veer off and they say, look, tier 1 counties like Harrison County has advantages over the tier 2, tier 3 counties. We like to bridge that digital divide, or make it more transparent for the tier 2 and tier 3s to have access to the internet, like say here Gulfport or Biloxi has. So what they say here is thereby leading to what has been termed a digital divide between tier 1 areas within the state and areas within the state that are tier 2 and tier 3 areas. And then they further go on to say it's in the public interest for people living in tier 2 areas and living in tier 3 areas of the state to have high-speed access to the internet. And then the last part, I think, is the most important. It says they declare that additional incentives, which is this exemption, are warranted to encourage telecommunication enterprises to invest in the infrastructure needed to provide broadband technology in tier 2 and tier 3 areas of the state. Now let's go back in time to 2003 real quick. Mobile wireless fixed broadband did not exist. I've been in this industry 30 years, and I was an engineer that designed the Atlanta system, 200 cell sites. We launched in 1996. I was the lead engineer on that. And my job was to construct cell sites, install equipment, and implement it. And my priorities or my goals was to make sure that that cell site had the ability to provide signal, okay, we'll just leave it at that, signal. And at that time, it was mostly voice. It wasn't even texting, it was voice. For me to get in a car and be mobile. So I drive down the road and I go from one cell site to the other, it's called handoffs. And my job was to make sure there was enough signal so that when I'm driving down the road that I would hand off. My job was not for the car to stop somewhere down the road, get out of the car with their cell phone, start walking up the driveway to their home, enter their home, sit down, and make a phone call. That was not what it was designed for, and has not been designed for since then. And I will come back to that. So my position is based on H 787-3. This law in 7, which I'm going to get to here, is only for tier 2 and tier 3 counties, the rural areas here of Mississippi. Okay, so let's look at H 787-7. This is the who, what, and when. If you go back to this is the where and the why. Where does it apply and why does it apply? This is who does it apply to, what does it apply to, and when does it apply? Well, the who is telecommunication companies, and T-Mobile is one. The what is the telecommunication equipment assigned down here, asynchronous transfer mode switches, DSL lines, multiplexers, routers, and all this stuff. T-Mobile equipment, the old equipment, or the equipment back in 2003, which was the typical mobile wireless cellular, have multiplexers, they have routers, stuff like that. They don't have digital subscriber lines. This equipment was specific for fiber companies that go out into the rural areas to provide, to build the infrastructure. Cable companies, DSL, whatever. It was not for the mobile, okay? Later in 2007, the iPhone came out. The mobile industry adopted this broadband technology more as a marketing scheme. And so now mobile cellular wireless, whatever, became mobile wireless broadband. That's great, but you got to remember that the system was designed for mobile activity. So I'm driving around and now I can get on the internet. But that still was not designed to get out of my car, walk up into the house and have internet. The cells were not built for that. Now, some people are lucky enough to be close to the cell site and they're able to enjoy their cell phone inside the home. But that doesn't mean that it was designed and built for that. Okay, let's move on to the new bill real quick. Caitlin said if I do this, then I do this. can everyone see the new bill? MSA 16.
Not yet, Chris.
All right, if I do this.
Nope.
I'm getting there. How about that?
There we go.
There you go.
All right, fantastic. So this, okay, Walt, you could give them maybe a little quick background on what we tried to do last year, work with the legislature.
Yeah, last year, the representative in Jasper, Mark Tullis, had a bill that was set to go that we helped them to craft and along with the legislature in order to really allow this industry to utilize their fixed asset service, which T-Mobile is starting to use, where they can actually serve homes off of the cell towers. And we felt that, fully 100% behind it, that the broadband bill from 2003 needed to specifically include those assets on those individual sites that were doing it. And that was specifically the radios and antennas, which are the key piece, the key assets. So unfortunately, the speaker, the bill to the floor, stating that they're going to craft a bill that was going to be fair for the industry, good for the counties, and it was all going to work out well. And unfortunately, that did not turn out to be the case. So we end up getting this kind of Franken bill here that was passed, was filed on the 27th. It went to committee on the 28th of January, and it was sent to the floor on the 29th. Okay, Chris? Give me.
Yeah. So I kind of refer to this as the Houdini Act, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So when we get down here, they kind of took the language of the old 5787-7, and they sort of twisted it a little bit, and they upped the speed from 25.3, which is 25 megabits down and 3 up, to 35.3. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, as an engineer, the speed is sort of a red herring, and I'll explain that in just a second. So let's read this together. Equipment used in the deployment of broadband technologies means any equipment capable of being used for and in connection with. Now, notice that word capable of, very important. To me, that's part of my language, that's a weasel word. Any equipment capable of being used in connection with the transmission information rate of 35 megabits per second. So my little notes over here basically says, you have a radio. Okay. The radio is capable of 35 megabits per second. Well, that's good, but according to this language, the way I read it, they don't have to hook it up. And even if they do hook it up and transmit, it doesn't have to be 35 megabits per second at the point of service. They're saying it is at the point of origin. So after you get through all the losses and stuff, you're not going to have what you think you're going to have. And the FCC last year in March upped the broadband definition on a speed, the speed of broadband to 100 megabits per second and 20 megabits per second, meaning downlink.
100, you clipped, 100 megabits down.
100 megabits downlink and 20 megabits uplink. So they've increased from 25.3 to 100. This bill was written after that. So yet they still want to go with this 35.3. And it's really a red herring because there's no teeth to this. They don't have to broadcast. And they don't have to have 35.3 at the customer end or at the point of service. Now, when you go back and look at the FCC, I'll show you this in a second. The FCC is pretty clear about that 120 being at the point of service, not at the point of origination. So this bill's really been crafted, by lobbyists or whatever, and it doesn't do anything for the counties, it doesn't do anything for the citizens of Mississippi. Furthermore, even in Mississippi, there was a bill passed last year, MS 7793, that defined broadband speeds at 120. So, but even in this bill, this pertains to the BEAD or the federal government grants and stuff. They still have the capability to transmit, and and that's a weasel out. That's a way to get out of the whole deal. So anyway, let's move on. Let's get down here to section that talks about fixed. So they added a section of fixed broadband. Remember I said there's two different ones, there's mobile, and there's a mobile wireless fixed broadband, which means in the home with a Wi-Fi modem. Okay. They even drafted this with the new FCC 100, they talked about the FCC's latest speeds, but they still say capable of transmission, so now that's really ineffective, doesn't do anything. This is a picture of what 2003 originally was. You had a fiber company, they sent fiber out across the county, and it went directly to the Wi-Fi modem, and then you were able to enjoy, at that time, you would enjoy having your computer connected to that Wi-Fi modem, and you'd be on the internet. So this is what the bill was originally for. It was a wired fixed process. Now later on in 2021, well, I will say, well after these broadband exemptions were being taken by the wireless carriers, which one carrier started in 2010, the other one followed in 11. I believe T-Mobile started in 15, and then another carrier followed in 16. Well before they had the capability to do this, in 2021, they put in this overlay equipment that actually allows the cell site to broadcast, and these cell sites have very narrow, they're 60-degree antennas, so you got signals that go straight down to that modem, and then you can sit in here and make phone calls, and you can have your computer, your TV, or whatever. So this works out fine when the cell site's close to the house. Okay, and I'm gonna show you in a minute what I mean by that, close to the house. Now you'll notice in only 3 directions these antennas point. They're called sectors, and they're 65-degree antennas. That only covers half of the cell site broadcasting. The other half is what we call lulls or nulls or dead zones. And that happens in between these sectors because the signal that's way out here is very, very low and cannot support Wi-Fi modem whatsoever. And I'll get into that in a second too. So, a couple things, everybody likes AI, so I thought I'd do you guys a favor, and I would get into stuff, you might put it in later. Is mobile broadband a reliable guaranteed way to get broadband in your home? No. Mobile broadband is not guaranteed or fully reliable, and I just explained to you why. Another one, is mobile broadband designed to provide broadband in your home? No. Mobile broadband is not specifically designed to provide broadband in your home. This is another little rendition of myself out. So we talked about this guy, and if we get coverage, this guy in here, or the whole community, that's in between two sectors, is not going to get the signal they need in order to drive this. This came up earlier, I think somebody made a call and talked about it. Submitting the certified sworn description of equipment, including transmission speeds to the guys, the speed, I think, is a red herring, and as far as getting a description of equipment, the only way to really get a good description of equipment is through engineering drawings. And so let me bring this up real quick. Right, hopefully this. About now.
You got it.
All right. So bear with me just a second. I want to scroll down a little bit. In the past, I've had a lot of these carriers talk about, all we do is Google and come up with numbers and stuff. But I'll tell you what, the internet is like the modern day library of Alexandria, right? We can find everything on there. But the key is we gotta know what we're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know when you found it, I agree, it's pretty useless. But this is a T-Mobile.
Can you blow it up? Blow it up.
Yeah, let's see, you guys, let me see if I can get rid of you. Now you can see this drawing over right, there's T-Mobile drawing information. And I can find these drawings all over the country. I cannot find any in Harrison County because I don't think your ordinance or your regulations require engineering drawings to be filed, but that would be my suggestion. This is a example of what you typically have in Harrison County. You have this, CommScope 840, and there's the model number, FFPK65C. And then you have this FWA mid-band antenna for the modem, for the Wi-Fi modem in people's homes. So it's nice, these engineering drawings are great. I would suggest, they have to submit them every year, red line. That means they show what was there before and what was added later. So let's quickly go back. Can you see that?
Sir, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you believe that T-Mobile, I'm sorry, I'm Tim Hall, the board attorney. Do you believe that T-Mobile has drawings such as this they could have tendered to the tax assessor so she could see the actual equipment at each of these locations?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I work for a company called Backwinder, that's AT&T, and Backwinder underwrote a $3 billion expansion for singular wireless at the time. And so I was their lead engineer for the program team out of Atlanta for the national bill. And we had to develop everything from scratch. And so these engineering drawings, I was actually the forerunner of developing these. And they give you really, really good detail on the RF and electrical, and the structural issues, at cell site.
One more question. Is it sufficient for the tax assessor to be able to assess these properties, provide a list that simply says cellular telephone as a description of the property?
I'm going to show you that right now. That's my next slide, and I'm going to
Okay.
try to bring it up if they're returned. And, let's see if I can navigate my way through here. That probably takes up more time than anything. So let me stop sharing on that one. And let me start sharing on this one.
Let me just answer your question, Tim. He knows the information.
There it is.
He's on our side.
Okay, can you see that?
It's loading. There we go.
There you go.
Can you get that bigger?
Yeah, we can. So I just reinforce here, we have mobile wireless broadband, which is their base network. And we have mobile wireless fixed broadband, which started in 2021 with the little antenna that broadcasts into your home to the Wi-Fi modem. Now, down here, I'll give you a little picture of it. These are two sites in Harrison County. One where they rendered $18,000 on the cell site for two cabinets. A small little generator here. You have AC distribution panels and stuff. But here's where all the cost really is. These little radios that goes up here behind the big antenna. There's two of them on each one of the 8-port antennas, the CommScopes. And then the small little antenna actually has radios built into it, and that's for your FWA fix. And those will put in 2021, 22 installed. That's where the cost is. So, between this and the radios and the fiber going down to the cabinets, the hybrid fiber, you're looking up to about 60–70% of the cell site. That's why they want all this exemption. And so anyway, here's another one exactly the same. It has a little bit bigger generator, it has two cabinets, and it has two antennas. This is a different type of FWA antenna. This is an older one that they were using, and then they went to the small one here. But you can see it's the same configuration. There's really no difference. But there is a lot of difference between what they rented, $18,000 versus others. So let's go up here. Let's talk about a lot. This is one of their returns. Blow this up a little bit bigger.
Yep, beautiful, great.
Yeah, you can see here the state class. They have put in telephones done, and they really only put 2 or 3 lines. They don't put antennas. They don't put power, Elko, antenna, radio. They don't put any of that 3G. They just throw this generic thing here. Now, down here, I just want to, and they all, by the way, $18,000, $19,000. There's the one in the 102nd floor. So anyway, the ones down here that are $398 and $213 so on, These are all stores at Beach Boulevard, and these are stores, so they don't apply here at all. I'm just talking about the cell sites. Walt mentioned earlier, there's no asset shown, I already said that, and there's no broadband equipment shown. So we don't know, you know, what was taken. And I suspect these $18,000 cell sites, that they've exempted about 90% of the site under exemption. Okay, another one that I want to show that I think is very important, this slide, I think is probably the most important slide I've got. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
So a few summaries here that I will go through. There's 49 cell sites. There is 50, but one of them is in transition. I don't know if they're going off the tower or coming on the tower. But out of the 31, T-Mobile rendered will return to cost under $100,000. I'll just give you a comparison. Our engineering, freight, and labor is on average $84,000 for each cell. Not much less for assets. We don't know what they exempted in the broadband. They gave a total of $5,109,000 that they rendered, and our average, and their average is $102,000. We modeled 21.9 million, and our average was 448, and you'll see that that's very consistent. Most of T-Mobile sites are what you would call quote unquote cookie cutter. The other cell carriers not so much, except for Dish. 17 of the 49 cell sites constructed since 2020. Only 8% of them, 4 out of the 49, was constructed in the rural areas that I would consider in Harrison County. And that goes back to the idea that the legislatures had, that they wanted to cover the rural areas because the metropolitan areas, the urban areas had an advantage over the digital divide, so to speak. This map gives you an idea of where the cell towers were in 2016. And the reason I put this up, just to give you an idea, this was when they started taking the broadband exemptions. And you can see out here in the rural areas of Harrison County, there's no cell towers to actually cover. They've got a decent little cluster down here. You need kind of a cluster around about like this in order to be successful in your FWA deployment. Meaning you have to have that signal overlap in order to get inside buildings and structures. So, you know, if they were to slap FWA on these sites, they would probably be able to cover 90% of the people here with a Wi-Fi modem. So that would make them, they would meet all the requirements of the bill except the tier 1, in my opinion, is exempt. They don't qualify. Tier 1 is not a county that it was written for. Anyway, that was part of what we tried to do last year is draft tier 1 rural areas should be in compliance, but they shot that down. Okay, the next slide, I show you what it looks like today. And you can see since 2020, this site was added, filled in between these two. A site that's what we call in the engineering business an island site. It's all after all by itself. And I would be extremely surprised if I drove a car between here and here, which is about 13 miles, that I would actually be able to keep that call. I would probably drop somewhere in here, most likely. So anyway, you notice everything's down here in the urban areas along the coast. Now, this slide is the same slide, but the blue represents where they have upgraded or overlaid this new FWA fixed broadband technology. So you see most of the cell sites do have that technology. They are selling the broadband, in-home broadband to their customers in Harrison. But it's primarily down here in the urban areas, not out here in the rural areas. Number one, they don't have anybody out there, any cell sites out there covering, so they can't. And they only happen on this area coming out of town on Highway 49. And really, just to give you an idea, it probably extend, and I'm, of course, I don't have the tool in front of me to do this, but the years that I've done, my experience tells me you probably get broadband out to, about here. So if I'm in a store, and, I'll give you an example here. This is a site, I'm sorry, let me go back. This is the site where only the single antenna or the mobile broadband site is located. So this is without the FWA overlay. You can see just a single antenna. Here we have the extra small FWA antenna, and that would be all the blue ones. So these are all upgrades, overlays, whatever you want to call it. And it was good that the new bill, the HB 64, actually differentiates between mobile broadband and mobile fixed broadband, meaning this little antenna. I'm glad that was a good thing that came out of the bill, was now people can understand the older bills was fixed only, but it was for the wired people running fiber and stuff, because that technology didn't exist in 2021. But I guess my point here is if you go into a T-Mobile store and you say, I want fixed broadband, what they're going to do is ask you which zip code you live in. And if you happen to give them one of these, you're probably going to get out of there pretty quick. But if you give them this or this one, then they're going to start asking you questions about your address and such, and they're going to be looking in their great engineers providing them that, yeah, you can go ahead and sell them anything out here or over here on this side because the cell sites are not down here. But if they give you this one or this one, just tell them we're sorry, we don't cover there. So that's
I'm sorry, sir, when you say this one and this one, that's not gonna show up on the record, what you're talking about, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you go into a store and you say, I live in the area code 39531, Biloxi, I think, they're gonna say, welcome to, T-Mobile. If you go to 39574, which is that, Salter?
Social.
They're gonna basically say, we don't cover out there. They may cover it a little bit based on one of the cell sites the most furthest one north, and it'll be in like a 3-mile radius, around there. This is AT&T. I just want to give you kind of a flavor of different carriers. AT&T had a different approach. They actually do have rural cell sites, but the difference is the V here is the overlay for the FWA antennas. They do the same thing. They're down here clustered and have good signals. They're able to compete with fiber guys. But when you come out here to the rural area, you notice they don't have any V's. There's no overlay. It's just a simple mobile broadband, which means you're driving around and being in different dead zones and all that stuff. It's not designed for homes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. This right here, guys, I'm not trying to get into the details of engineering, but this is probably a picture that's easily understood. This is a rendition or an example of a 65-degree antenna that's used out here in the cellular industry. I put in all the parameters and stuff that I normally would in a tool. Now it only has terrain attenuation pattern. It does not have trees, foliage. It doesn't have in-building, losses and all that stuff. But you can see it goes out about, that's about 3 miles right here to the orange, the red and orange. I'll put it in layman's terms. Anywhere in this area, and whether you're driving or if you've got out of your car and start walking around, you probably have 4 bars. Maybe 3 or 4, it probably jump around in certain areas. Because RF signal is very coarse. So you see out here how it flames out over on the sides. And it flames out even here in the middle. It's not contiguous, same level. It kind of falls off as it gets further out. So just give you an idea, this would be about 4 bars. Get out here to the yellow, you're looking at 3 bars. Get over here to the corner, you're looking at 3, down to 2 bars. As you go further and further away from the window or the pie at 65 degrees, you're gonna get into one bar, and then you're gonna get into no service. So if I don't have a cell site up here that's actually pointing back down in this direction, and remember, all of them are the same. One will point northeast at 30 degrees, another one will point southeast at 150 degrees, and the other one will point west at 270 degrees. So I'm always gonna have this dead zone, so to speak, or this null in the pattern. So I've got to build a cell site down here, point back down in here, in order to cover that sufficiently. This gives you kind of an idea that here it's a pretty little crap and quick. Engineers originally, we started all this back in the 90s. We had this thing from one of the books called a honeycomb model. It makes sense. We would design these sites, one would go here, one would go here, one would go here, and then below it, one would be offset, so the signal of 30 degrees would, cover the area where the null was. And that would be repeated throughout. Now, you notice, if I don't have a cell site here, what do I have? I have a lack of coverage or a dead zone. And also, this is ideal, obviously, but this doesn't happen in the real world. That nice uniform pattern turns into this, or for T-Mobile sake, it turns into this. So we don't have that nice uniform pattern. They have to work with what they get based on zoning and so on. And I'll skip that. The losses, I'll just quickly jump on this. If you have a house that's made out of brick, you're looking at about a 12 dB loss. What does that mean? Well, if I have 1 watt and I'm in the 0.1 watt or 100 milliwatt, I'm losing 90% of the signal that's going through the home.
Sir, let me see if we can sum up a little bit. Can you tell the board, is T-Mobile entitled to the broadband exemption or not, in your opinion?
In my opinion, right now as it stands, 5787-3 is still in effect. The new
Correct.
bill, HB 1644, did not address the wheres and the whys for the bill. It talked about the speeds. It didn't really go into the equipment anymore. It just talked about the speeds. It's, to me, they have not met the where and the why threshold. It also, 5787-3, still talks about tier 2 and tier 3 counties being the focus of exemptions. So in my opinion, I say tier 1 counties should not be exempted in any case. No equipment. That's, that might be argued. We even tried to clarify that last year so that at least the rural areas up here in your county would be covered. That was my intention when I was drafting that. Any of this up here, as long as it had FWA equipment, I would say the FWA equipment should be exempt. And that's about $120,000.
If I may, does the statute speak to tier 1s, tier 2s?
Yes, there's some discussion about tier 1 and tier
Pardon
2.
me?
You want to explain the tier 1, tier 2?
Tier
Issue.
1 apparently is the more developed counties, I presume.
Correct.
Tier 2 is more rural. And basically what you're saying, sir, the tier 1 counties are not exempt based on how you read the statute.
If you go back to 5787-3, it is very clear in there that the legislature will give additional incentives.
I'm sorry, I
They
don't
use
know.
that word additional incentives for tier 2 and tier 3.
Speak up a little bit.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were asking. Say it again, please.
When you go back to the language in 5787-3 from 2003, the where and the why is discussed. And the where part, who, what, when, where, why, how. The where part, it says in there explicitly that additional incentives for tier 2 and tier 3 counties is the will of the legislature.
The purpose of the statute.
To me, the additional incentives is the broadband.
Well, and to tie a bow on this, to just simplify it too, is the assets that were listed in 5787-3 are tied directly to the fixed DSL fiber cable industry and for the expansion of what everyone knew back then as broadband. Broadband was fiber cable. There was no other option until after 2007, and forward. So just by virtue of the fact that the assets that are listed there, the bill was written in 2003, when the technology for mobile wireless didn't exist to do internet. That in itself negates all of these exemptions that have been taken between 2009 and to date. As we move forward, assets installed after July 1st, 2025 are going to be exempt for a period of 5 years, and that's covered under the new bill. So, you know, that's the way it separates. So the stuff we're talking about now is all under the old bill. As we go forward, it'll be a combination of, it'll be messy because it's going to be a combination of both.
Now, can you sum up as to the values of the values versus what T-Mobile is asserting on the values? What do you recommend to the county? What is your opinion as to the values, or recommendation to the board as to those values, to the tax assessor of Harrison County versus what T-Mobile has presented or rendered?
This slide, if you see it here, is the T-Mobile CTS cost summary. This is a snapshot of what T-Mobile rendered in 2024 for the 2023 assets at each location. So if you start at the top there, you see 114,504. That's what they put on their return. And we modeled it at 454,726 away. So if you look through these, you'll see a bunch of them that are under $100,000. I went over that earlier. Great deal of art. Our numbers are, because they're cookie cutters, really, our numbers pretty much stay consistent in the $450,000 range. And when we get down here, we get to the total, $5,129,000. This is something real quick. The FCC started back in 2020. They did they came up with a program, and I really think it was primarily for the Congress to be able to see what a snapshot of what's going on out there with their grant money. And so they required all carriers, fixed, wired, or fixed wireless, or even satellite, to fill out a form called Form 477. And then they would, they transpose that onto a map. So if you go on the internet, you can look up FCC Form 447, and you'll find an interactive map. Unfortunately, it's not updated anymore. As of June 2021, and that's pretty much, you know, the latest. But it does give you an insight as to what things look like in Harrison County in June of 2021. You'll notice the only fixed wireless there was DSL by air, which is low.
Seems like I remember.
But there-
Yes,
But
please.
there was,
Excuse me just a minute. Excuse me just a minute, huh?
Go ahead.
It seemed like I recall one, as far as the totals, was roughly, I can't see those figures that well, but it was like T-Mobile had it valued at 5 million and something total, and CTS had it valued at 21 million. Am I misreading those figures? 5
5 million to
and 17, I'm sorry. So that's the total difference in the values that CTS sees it as far as in reference to T-Mobile. T-Mobile's saying it's 5.1 million, CTS is saying 17 point something million.
no,
Am I correct in reading those figures, that's totals?
Really,
Total
I think
value?
it's
Really includes, including labor, it's almost 22 million.
So,
5.1 million versus 20.
22 million is what you're saying, Robert?
Yes.
Okay, that's the total, that's the difference. And the values as CTS sees it and as T-Mobile.
Chris, you want to roll down to some of
And
the assets?
am I correct in presuming that T-Mobile's calculations that you're reading is based on their that it would be exempted and that would be the figures shown? Or that's before exemption?
They're showing their number for what only they believe is taxable.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
We have no detail, but that is the total. of what
That's what I'm
they're-
getting, that figure, that 5.1 million is what they
Yes, sir.
are calculating that they would present to us as a value based on the exemption. If it's not exempted, they're not presenting anything.
I don't think that's correct. I think what the lawyer said earlier was twofold. One is part of it's exempt, and the other is the difference between what their cost is versus what CTS has determined the value of that equipment is. Because correct me if I'm wrong, the argument is that because they have buying power, they get it at a lot, lower cost than CTS is calculating.
We have.
Is that right, CTS? There's two issues.
There are discounts that are in, within their ability to purchase at volume, but the thing is they're not near as great as what they're saying. Chris worked in the equipment industry as well, and when you look at the margins of manufacturing this equipment, they're not as thick as you think they are. They're around, the key radio manufacturers, Ericsson and Nokia, are probably in the range of 32 to 38% gross margins before all their costs. And the carriers are saying that they're getting 70, 80% discounts. It's just not feasible.
Not only that, they're not producing anything to show what they claim they pay, their cost was, are they?
No, no.
I mean, they're just saying that that was their cost as opposed to providing any proof of that.
Correct. And as I said, when we pressed, I don't say pressed, we just asked the people at Dish Wireless for their information, and within 6 hours, they reduced it, that matched it to the dollar. And their senior director for tax, I asked him, I said, why are your numbers, you're the only company in the industry that has these numbers dead on. And he said, oh, well, because we work from our fixed asset report. We only have, basically, Dish Wireless as a company, it's all integrated. These are the numbers that are reported to the SEC. So they have to be correct legally. And it's like, okay, that's the way it's supposed to be done. But unfortunately, it is not done that way throughout the rest of the industry.
Let me ask one other clarification. Early on, when Tim was asking T-Mobile why they didn't submit to some of those questions you had about documents, her argument, if I understand correctly, she said they didn't have it. Some of it they didn't have. Well, if I understand CTS, they're indicating that that's probably so, but it's corporate that has that information. If I understood CTS, what they said.
It's an interpretation of who they is. You're talking about T-Mobile South LLC, the entity where they file their taxes but has no assets or no employees. Then yes, they have no cost. They have no asset detail. All of that's held by the parent company, and that is not accessible to the tax.
You telling me that since they don't have that information that Harrison County is requesting, or some of it, that corporate has it, but since corporate is not located within the boundaries of Harrison County, that corporate doesn't have to submit that information through them to us?
But we'd have to, in court, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to pierce the veil of the separation between corporate US, T-Mobile US and T-Mobile South LLC, and go back to corporate and get the actual information that's held by the people that own the assets.
Okay. I mean, how can they operate without having that information, and the corporate above them is not obligated to provide it?
Question.
I don't understand it. Maybe there's a.
Well, they don't provide the information to the tax assessor, to the board, then they cannot protest the assessment, basically.
I'm talking about corporate.
I'm talking about whoever did
You're talking about
provide
whoever, they've got to provide that information to them.
it. They have access to it, they have to provide it. They're gonna have a hard time arguing they didn't have access to it.
Well, that's what it appears, that they're saying they don't have it, or some of it.
Well,
they don't
some
have
of it she was asked because the letter is actually written towards residential, and not specific to cell towers. But they do have some of that information, like, I have a hard time believing they don't have an insurance schedule for each one of these towers that tells them what they're insuring for. Insurance companies are not that stupid. They make you produce something that says this is the value that I'm insuring.
For whatever the reasons, we don't have that information, and as a result of us not having that information, deny their appeal.
That's,
Ready to make that
But
motion?
I'm ready to make that motion. Tim, I don't want to be premature, because there's some issues in that ultimately might, so I would ask your advice, is it, you
I
know?
think that's what I was leading to when I
I'm
was asking the
prepared to
question.
make that motion. We don't have it, therefore we deny the appeal.
Oh, well, I second that. Whenever we get ready to vote, we're voting now, we're just discussing it.
You can make the motion now if you want.
Now I just made the motion, I second it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I don't want to be,
But I think
you
you're right.
know, okay.
All right. I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're done.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Anita.
everybody.
Now, are we recessing or are we adjourning?
Recess, yeah, because you have
We're
other
coming.
tax hearings.
When are we coming back here?
We'll be in Gulfport August 25th.
Okay, I need a motion to
But
recess.
if you're gonna recess from here, you gotta have something that's gonna be here.
And go for it.
And if it's in Gulfport, we don't need to
Yeah,
Yeah, we
recess.
adjourn here and go. if
We
we're
can
going to-
adjourn and go back to Gulfport,
Because
because we in recess in Gulfport.
we got, budget meeting Wednesday, don't we?
Recess.
Oh, yeah, that's in Gulfport. Yeah, so we
So
recess.
the point is, why would we recess here
We're
unless we
adjourned.
You're not coming
anticipate?
back here.
We're not coming back.
So
We have
you
to
adjourn
motion to
here, and
adjourn.
then
Motion to adjourn, we're not coming back
We
here.
have a motion and a second
you
discussion.
have to do a new
All in
meeting.
favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks,
Thank y'all.
everyone.